last man standing for the Padres is the only guy that's been on base in a San Diego uniform. Tommy Pham, the leadoff hitter, has walked 3 times. Center field, Marte, it's a no-hitter!
Oh, what a cool moment. A pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks, one of the worst teams of all time, throws a no-hitter on his first career start. This is interesting to see. Daily sports podcasts about news, narratives, takes, and gambling. Just kind of scrolling Twitter and Reddit for you. I'm Nick Andrews, wherever podcasts are found, etc., like, rate, review, etc. Big show today. This is one of my favorite times of year. I find it as just a sports nerd to be the most romantic time. Well, before we talk about romance, we'll get Tim Tebow off the screen. I find it to be the most romantic time in sports of the year is in August because a lot of different things are going on, all of which are people achieving their dreams. 2 things are happening at the same time in pro sports, which are call-ups. Usually it's September call-ups, but people are calling people up in professional baseball in August and September. What happens is teams that are done, that are trash, like the Arizona Diamondbacks, they will give bullpen guys starts, and you call people up from the minors to see how good they are, because if you give them a certain amount of games after a certain point in time, they are still rookies the next year if you want to try them out another year. So it's just a good time to see a bunch of these guys. So a lot of baseball players are going to be making their professional debuts. That's very romantic to me. You'll get to see parents in the stand. This guy makes his first start. His dad in a Diamondbacks jersey is freaking out. First start, you get a no-hitter with one guy on base. That's crazy. I love that stuff. And then in football, it's the same thing. There are people like Tim Tebow that are appear to be, blackmailing Urban Meyer to get a roster spot. I have no idea how he's still in the league. But most of the guys who you'll see in the preseason, they're just it's an incredible, overwhelming thing. They've worked for years and years, and they're clearly not going to be superstars, but they're trying to make a roster, and they get to wear an NFL uniform and score an NFL touchdown and maybe be on ESPN. I love that stuff. It's really cool. No one's trying to win the games, but the people that are in the fourth quarter that are fighting for that 53rd spot or fighting for a practice squad spot or fighting for a paycheck, it's the most pure form of the game. I love it. It's heartbreaking when they get cut, and the vast majority of them, I believe, will get cut. It's 90 people, so not the majority. Misspoke. 43% of all players that are alive in the preseason will be cut. A third of them will be cut. Third of the cuts are coming for Tuesday. There's a deadline. Cuts have to be made. First round of cuts is on Tuesday, but these guys are fighting for a spot. The Detroit Lions, I love this story. They signed a running back on Friday for their preseason game. On Friday, he met his teammates in the huddle. And then he ran a first or second carry. It was a 20-something yard touchdown. Those moments are what's cool. You get to see some people will cry or keep their jerseys. It's be on the field at the same time with certain people. It's a really romantic time. Little League World Series is back later this week. We'll get into that as well. That's a very romantic and beautiful thing. I want to talk about this Tim Tebow thing real quick because we're going to be on YouTube, so we'll bring it up so we can watch it. Tim Tebow was signed to Jacksonville, and the Jacksonville dumpster fire continues to get worse. Urban Meyer doing a lot of college stuff. First thing is he hires that super racist strength coach. The union says, hey, fire that guy. This isn't college. You can't get away with that. So then he does. Then he has practice in the spring. There's no contact in spring practices. He has a contact spring practice. The union's like, hey, you can't do that here. This isn't Ohio State where they just let you get away with things. He got fined. The organization got fined. And then he's doing a bunch of gimmicky crap like this. He does weird drills that he has a winners and losers day. Or I don't know what that means, but it's something that he did in college, and it worked at Florida. He said that the reason that Jacksonville is going to be good is because they'll get the best players. No, that's not how it works. Can't recruit. So let's watch this Tim Tebow play. For those of you on YouTube, Tim Tebow is lined up like an H-back. So the formation is shotgun. There's a running back to the right of the quarterback, and Tim Tebow is between the quarterback and the line of scrimmage on the left side. He's in a fullback position. His job is either going to be to run a route in the flat, or he's going to have to go somewhere to the line of scrimmage and make a block. So let's play it. There it is. So Tim Tebow, he's going to move to his right and make a block. Oh, he falls down. He did get his shoulder on the guy. He kind of threw himself at the guy. I would say it was a D+ execution with a C+ effort. If you haven't seen the clip, it'll be available in the show notes. 5.1 million views for Tim right there. I can't believe he's still on the team. It's crazy. And he's fighting for the 4th tight end spot on a bad Jacksonville team. I don't know who their first tight ends are, but I know that he will not be the first tight end. Speaking of messes, let's go over to the Green Bay Packers. Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers are posting on Instagram, because Aaron Rodgers is like co-GM now. They're posting on Instagram that they want Clay Matthews back. Clay Matthews was cut by the Rams in 2020, so he did not play in the NFL. He was playing for the Rams, I believe, in 2019. Apparently, Rodgers, Cobb, and Bakhtiari posted on Instagram that they want him back on the team. Remember, Aaron Rodgers forced the Packers to trade for Randall Cobb so that he would come back, which is silly and a waste of money. But now GM Brian Gutekunst is saying that he's not interested in bringing Clay Matthews back, but Bakhtiari, Cobb, and Rodgers want him back, which to me is hilarious, I guess. The really annoying thing about all of this is an angry Aaron Rodgers is a good Aaron Rodgers. Bakhtiari is going to waltz into the Hall of Fame. So what do you do if you're the Packers? Do you send money to Clay Matthews to get him on the squad? Do you want him? I mean, so the way it works in the NFL is, if you didn't know, the salary cap is a certain number. If this year it's 200 something, it didn't go up. They locked it so they didn't keep losing money and players didn't lose money. But the way that it works is you are required over a 2-year period to spend 89% of the salary cap. Because if there's a salary cap, then there's a salary floor. So you can't spend over unless there are penalties, or you can't spend under. But if you spend 89%, if you cross that threshold, the owner gets to keep the rest. It's just straight cash, homie. So if you have a cap and you spend, 91% of the cap, the remaining 9% over that year is literally millions of dollars in the owner's pockets. So giving Clay Matthews this money, if it doesn't lead to a Super Bowl, it's just lighting owners' money on fire. And if you're a GM, you're trying to win games, but I'm sure their owner's like, hey, is this guy going to help you? No, but it'll make Aaron Rodgers happy. Well, the guys that are Aaron Rodgers' boss are multi-millionaires too. That's why you're like, why? We'll just go out and sign this guy. Owners are like, no. How about no? We see that with the Colts all the time. The Colts are not geniuses. They're cheap. So I want to watch this. I just want chaos in Green Bay. Week 1 of the NFL preseason. Let's talk about the gambling part of it before we get to the narrative part of it. The gambling part of it was fascinating, and I mean fascinating. So I finally figured out the biggest locks in the preseason. Lock number 1, the Ravens have won 18 straight preseason games. Last year, there were none. This year, there are 3. Before that, there were 4 per year. That means what, 4 years, 4.5 years since they've lost a preseason game, which is really bizarre because they don't matter. In those years, the Ravens have been above average trash and also the best team in pro football, so it didn't indicate how they would do in the season, but they just can't stop winning preseason games. They won again, which is absolutely crazy. From a gambling perspective, and oh, by the way, Jim Harbaugh 7-1 against the spread in the last 8 preseason games. But from a gambling perspective, unders in the preseason have been rumored to be hot. In the first 16 preseason games, 14-2 on the under, which is wild. That means that Vegas doesn't know how to handicap the lines, and they just don't have the courage to push them lower and lower. Because for the regular season, if you see totals in the 30s, you're like, yeah, that's going over. These are pros. But because no one's trying to win the game, there's no like rush at the end of the half or the end of the fourth quarter. This has been my analysis here. There's no rush to score points at the end of the half or the end of the first quarter. That cuts down on 3 to 9 points per game, which can take you from a 36.5 total to a 40 total. I mean, I kind of think that's what's going on. I don't know. Something's going on. So I will look into the unders this week, but 14-2 is a trend. That means they don't know how to handicap the games. They don't. All right, preseason NFL Week 1 narrative watch. Man, quarterbacks are on fire. Every quarterback that made their debut for their team looked really good. A couple people didn't. Sean McVay does not play his best players in the preseason. They have 90 people on their roster. 38 didn't play. 1 or 2 because of like injuries or whatever, but Matt Stafford, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, you will never see them in a preseason game, which, I don't know, coaches want to see starters and whatever, but Aaron Donald is walking into the Hall of Fame. Jalen Ramsey's the best at his position in the NFL, and Matthew Stafford's right on the Hall of Fame bubble, I suppose. So like they're not going in there. There's just no reason to, I guess, is his take on this. But other quarterbacks that made their debut, Justin Fields apparently is the greatest Chicago Bears quarterback of all time. Jordan Love looked good according to the Packers Twitter account. Sam Ehlinger, the rookie quarterback for the Colts, is apparently better than Jacob Eason, the backup second-year quarterback for the Colts. Can't wait to see what happens when Carson Wentz feels the heat from a backup. That'll be hilarious for all of us. Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson apparently looked adequate. Trey Lance had one of the most beautiful deep throws we've ever seen, but then he looked very ridiculous in other moments where he was just kind of freaking out and looked very young. Perhaps regret my bet on him to win MVP. Jared Goff for the Lions looked good. A lot of new quarterback debuts, and everybody looked good. Mac Jones, everybody says, looked like he knew what he was doing in the NFL. So the narrative right now is that there are a bunch of really good quarterbacks. I don't know what this can be about. I suspect it's just that when I watched week one, when the first and second teams were in, it looked like people were going about 80%. There were some big hits. Chase Young is a freak, got that out of the way, but there looked like people were like, it looked like just a half step above Pro Bowl level. You know, like just a little bit more intense than the Pro Bowl level. And very good advice from NFL insider Ian Rappaport. He said, don't overreact to the preseason. He then copy and pasted that and tweeted it. So I said, don't overreact to the preseason, don't overreact to preseason, don't overreact to the preseason. And then someone found this old tweet from him for NFL fans. Just watched the E.J. Manuel highlights again from the Bills preseason game. Man, he looked really solid. E.J. Manuel, of course, was garbage and is no longer in the NFL. Finally, today we're going to wrap up. I'm trying to keep it closer to 10 or 12 minutes for you guys. I want to wrap up today by talking about a united movement by the internet to get mad at the NFL. So the NFL has points of emphasis every year, which means that in an annoying fashion, they look at the rule book and they find out things that they had been caught not really caring that much about. Last year it was holding. They're like, do we care too much about holding? Yeah, we care a little bit too much about holding. Let's not care about holding so much. So they didn't, and it was still illegal. It just wasn't called as much. They have different points of emphasis every year. This year, the point of emphasis is an increase in enforcement of taunting. There was a pretty egregious taunt, according to the new enforcement that went around the internet. A Colts guy, he went up the middle, he dragged guys for about 5 or 6 yards, and he got up and just flexed over the guy. In college, that's a taunting penalty. In the NFL, it's a taunting penalty too, and it kind of always has been technically. But for the last couple of years, the NFL got called out for calling that kind of stuff, and it was not enforced. Well, apparently it's going to be enforced now, and the internet's freaking out. The National Football League has, occasionally canceled a rule that they were going to enforce aggressively in the preseason. So if we all get mad enough, like right now I'm looking, No Fund League is trending number 3 in the United States behind ECMO. Well, that's not good. Those of you that don't know what ECMO is, it's the Hail Mary attempt when you have COVID. It's incredibly expensive, and it means you're basically dead. Actually means you're technically dead, scientifically. But they're just trying to keep you dead long enough for your body to figure it out. Ugh, don't love that. I haven't seen that trending in a while. All right, No Fun League is trending, though, so get on the No Fun League hype train, and maybe the NFL will stop being such curmudgeons unless you think that they should allow taunting or they shouldn't allow taunting. I don't know. It's annoying. Taunting is hilarious because it is the worst. You just want to punch the player right in the face when your team gets taunted, but when your team does the taunting, you're like, ha, 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 suck it. So I don't know. I think that's part of sports. And they're adults. This is not college where they're supposed to represent whatever university and sing the alma mater and blah, blah, blah. Like, these are people with families and pay taxes and whatnot. And I think if the union allows it, then the league should allow it. The league should not be enforcing taunting. You shouldn't get a 20-yard gain and then go back 15 yards only to have another 1st and 10. Like, what's the point? What is the point of that? Drives getting wiped out from a 15-yard taunting penalty are going to be the stupidest and most annoying thing ever. I am going to be incredibly upset by that. It's the most romantic time of year over the weekend. Cleveland Indians and Detroit Tigers played a day game. Indians pitcher Tristan McKenzie was 4 outs away from the first perfect game since 2012 before Harold Castro, the Tigers, singled to right field. 1 base runner in the game. Tristan McKenzie's final line: 8 innings pitched, 93 pitches, 1 hit, 11 strikeouts. I love August. Interesting to see. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Going to add a Sunday show when the NFL kicks off. It'll be a little bit of a deep dive, a narrative deep dive. I've had a couple requests for just focusing on one story for 10 or 15 minutes, and I find that there's an utter lack of podcasts on NFL Sunday mornings. All right, that's going to do it for me. Links in the description. Share it. Could use some help if you like it. Tell everybody about it. All right, thanks, guys.